G'day, athletes. Welcome to another episode of the Kilted Athlete Podcast. So, it's December. We've been training all year. We've been keeping on track with our training plan. We've been eating the right things most of the time. And then December comes. Christmas is a couple of weeks away. There's work Christmas parties. There's family and friends coming over. There's lots of food and alcohol. Gyms are closed. There's lots of pressure to to stop your usual fitness regime. So how do we survive? Well, I don't have all the answers, but I do have a couple of tips. But before we go into that, just want to say, if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to this podcast on your preferred podcast provider. Share with your friends, like the episode, comment, and do all that good stuff. So, with Christmas just around the corner, I just wanted to take this opportunity to share a few of my kind of realistic tips about training and maintaining your training regime and nutrition regime at the time of the year that's probably the most difficult time of the year to keep this up. As I said, there's various factors. You know, you've got family and friends coming around. We could be traveling. There's lots of food. You know, temptation to eat lots of not so healthy foods, alcohol around, and you're out of your usual routine. There's pressure to not go and go for that jog or go to the gym. Gym might be shut. You might be traveling and don't have access to your gym. There's lots of factors that can hamper our usual fitness regime. And then it's not just Christmas. You've kind of got a whole, I guess, week because you've got New Year's Day after that. And even before, you've got your office Christmas parties. So they usually start around early December. So you might be hopping from one party to the next throughout December. And I guess even if you're from like America, for my American listeners out there, somewhere in the mix there, I believe about November somewhere, you've also got Thanksgiving there. So, there could be like a whole month or even longer of this kind of distraction from your usual training regime. So how do we cope? How do we keep on track over this time of the year? How do we stop ourselves I guess losing what we've built up all year. The last thing I want to do is, put on my kilt for the first time in the new year and have to go up a couple of notches. So yeah, how do we keep on track? Well, before I go into my specific tips on how to keep on track, I just want to point out a couple of things. So the biggest worry um, in this period over Christmas is not that week or so where you're not going to be exercising as much or where you're going to be eating more, because in reality, 1 week out of the whole year isn't going to make a real lot of difference. So if I don't go to the gym for 1 week out of the year, I'm not going, all the muscle that I've built is not suddenly going to disappear. If I have a week of eating not so healthy, I'm not going to suddenly put on 15 kilos. So that's really not the biggest worry. The biggest worry is actually losing the habits that we've built up all year. So the longer you go without doing your regular activities, the longer you go without doing your usual nutrition routine, the more chances of of letting that slip. Say for example, if you've been running, 3 days a week for the last 12 months, and then you don't run for 2 weeks, um, chances of starting that routine back again, the longer you don't run for, the tougher it is to get back, and the higher the chances of not getting back into that routine is. So it's not actually a week of, you know, little exercise or, more bad food or anything that's the worry. The worry is breaking that routine. In the grand scheme of things, if there were two me's, if there was me in an alternate reality, and we went through the whole year, and one of me skipped a week in the gym, and then you compared the two at the end of the year, there'd be no difference. So that week that you've, you know, sort of let yourself go a bit with when it comes to food, that you've not gone to the gym or whatever, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to make a real lot of difference. Um, the breaking of the routine is the bigger problem. So what might happen is it's not just the Christmas Day thing. You might have started your kind of Christmas parties and stuff um, early December. You might have a work Christmas party, and then your partner's work Christmas party. There's another social function, and I know how it is. Come December, you've pretty much got some function on nearly every weekend, and then you might that might be on a Saturday night, so you miss your Sunday morning long run or something like that. Next thing you know, and then Christmas comes, and then New Year's comes, and next thing you know, like you've kind of been in this routine of de-routining, I guess, for want of a better word. You've been out of your routine. You've been in a routine of being out of your routine for a month. So you've created yourself a new routine. So the longer you kind of leave that, the harder it is to get back into a good routine. Having said that, you do need to allow yourself to enjoy yourself. Um, so don't go for the all or nothing attitude. I've mentioned the all or nothing attitude in a previous podcast about why New Year's resolutions are probably going to fail. But for those that haven't heard that, all or nothing attitude is essentially when you say, right, I'm not going to eat chocolate, or I'm going to run every day, or you just go all in, and then if you fail at any point there, then it becomes nothing. So there's nothing in between there, and the all or nothing routine is what's going to contribute to our failure, basically. Because what happens, and I did in the other podcast where I mentioned this, I did use my own example of chocolate. If I were to say to my wife, I'm never eating chocolate again, she'd laugh at me. Um, but if I went all in and say, right, I'm never eating chocolate again, and then one day I kind of like give in and have a Tim Tam or a bit of chocolate, and then it's kind of like, oh well, I failed now, so I might as well eat all the chocolate. That's kind of what the all or nothing attitude is. So we need to ditch that. Enjoy yourself, but don't go overboard. Allow yourself to have some fun. Allow yourself to have a treat. Cut yourself some slack without going overboard. So that's kind of my general advice. But now I'll go into specific tips. So I'm going to break these tips up into two. I'm going to firstly talk about exercise tips and then the food tips. So so my first exercise tip is get your exercise done early in the day, before the family wakes up, before all those people that are going to try to stop you from doing these things, before they're up and active. Get up and active before that all happens. Um, and then you don't have that hanging over you for the rest of the day. You know, if you say, I need to go to the gym, I need to go for my run or for my walk or whatever, get that done. If you can get that done early in the day, then you haven't got that hanging, looming over your head for the rest of the day. So if you leave it till later in the day, and like the family's there, the food's out there, a few beers out there, and next thing like it comes to like 8, 10 o'clock at night, and you still haven't done that thing. You've had a bit too much to drink, not feeling like you bloated, you've ate too much. So yeah, get it done early in the day. Tick that box off early before all the distractions have woken up. So another big tip is walk wherever you can. So if nothing else, get a lot of walking in. So use walking to if you need to go somewhere that's not that far away, still in walking distance. Don't drive there, walk there. And, that especially helps if you're having a couple of beers as well. But, walk wherever you can. Park, park, I, um, I, I just had to pause recording there for a minute. A freight train was going past, so, I'm actually out for a walk myself, which is, a bit, I guess, ironic. I'm talking about walking more, and I'm actually out for a walk while I'm recording this podcast. So, yeah, as I said, look, park a bit further away. Don't do the whole, parking as close as you possibly can to that shop front, or, you know, park further away. Force yourself to get these steps in. Your step count goal, that's another good way of keeping yourself honest over this period of time. So if you even if you set yourself a higher step count goal, just to ensure that like you're getting you're getting that exercise in at the bare minimum um, throughout this period of the year. I think I've mentioned my step count goal several times before on this podcast, and there's been times where I've got towards the end of the day and I've been short on my goal and I've had to go out for a walk just to make this happen. I've even been like, it's been pouring rain and I've had an umbrella out for a walk just so I can get my minimum step count goal up. So that's kind of a good way of keeping yourself honest and keeping yourself disciplined over this time of the year. And it's also a good way of sort of like de-stressing when all the family and friends are around and it gets loud and noisy and you just need to get away for a little bit. Just go out for a walk. If you're traveling, this is where it gets tough because if you're traveling for a few hours, that's a few hours that you're actually sitting down, especially like if you're on an airplane or something, you can't really like, pull over the airplane and just kind of go for a walk around. You can't really walk up and down the aisles the whole time. They'll look at you like you're crazy, and you might get told to go and sit back in your sleep. But look, travel days, it's kind of like if you need to write them off, so be it. Like one day where you actually have no choice, especially if you're doing a long flight, like a 20-hour flight or something like that. Like that's one day. It's basically written off. You're not able, and that's just realistically the thing. Like it's but that in the grand scheme of things, it's one day. out of 365. So that's, I wouldn't say, hey, I'm traveling a long haul flight. I wouldn't say that's an excuse. That's a valid reason there. But if you're driving a couple of hours to another town, there's no reason why you can't stop and go for a walk and get some exercise in. Um, if you are traveling, look, motels, a lot of motels, hotels have gyms. They're probably not as good as the gyms that we're used to going to, but there's something there. They usually have like a treadmill, a few cable machines, a few dumbbells, so you can make it work, even if it's not ideal, not the gym that you're used to. And the good thing about motel gyms is they're often quiet. There's often no one there, as opposed to like your regular gym where it could be packed. Um, you could be struggling for space in the gym. Motel gyms are usually pretty quiet. I've been to quite a few motel gyms and I've been the only one there. Go for an exploratory walk or jog, and that's a good way to find new places in a new town. Like go for a jog around the place. You'll find things that you won't find when you're going for a drive. You find like a little coffee place or a restaurant to have dinner at that yeah you probably wouldn't find if you were driving. So the last kind of tip I've got about exercise is stay connected with your positive friends. So your training partner type friends, even if you're not physically connected, actually seeing them, you can stay connected like over social media, over the phone, whatever, because they're the ones that are going to keep you on track. So mutually keep each other on track. So I did my last episode. I talked about the power of having positive friends. So these are the ones that are going to keep you on track and you keep them on track. So share your wins. If you've been for a run, if you've been lifting weights, share something with them. Share like the map of where you've run your GPS run. Share it with them. What I have a few friends that we have like a Facebook kind of chat group going, and we're not living in the same town, but we're kind of keeping each other honest by doing that kind of thing. Sharing like the running events we've been on and what we've done, and it's quite a positive kind of thing to be doing, and especially at a time of year where you're probably you're probably up against people trying to say, oh, you don't need to do that, relax, it's Christmas, what are you going for a run for? A week's not going to hurt you. Um, so it's good to kind of stay connected with people that are going to keep you on track. It's kind of like mutual mentoring. Um, I've actually coined that phrase myself. I think I'll do a whole podcast on that sometime, called mutual mentoring. It's where you're kind of like mentoring your peers, but they're mentoring you as well, keeping each other honest, keeping each other on track. So yeah, stay connected with these people. That's very important, and possibly, and I know it's not always possible, but try to limit your time with the naysayers, the ones that are going to drag you down and sort of make fun of you for getting up and going for that jog. Try to where you can try to kind of like limit your time spent with those people. And I know, look, it's not always possible. Many of us have these people in a family, um, and and could be staying over, or you're staying over their place, and you're lacing up your shoes to go for a run, and they're saying, "Oh, what are you doing that for?" And they try to kind of like drag you down into that kind of not doing it. And quite often it's because because you might be making these people feel bad because they're not doing it. So their one kind of way of their defence against that is to try and make you feel bad for doing this. Yeah, so kind of stay connected with those positive people and try where possible to limit your time with the negative people. So onto the food now. This is where it gets really difficult. Because I like food. I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. I enjoy a beer, glass of wine, and around this time of year, there's usually lots of that around. So it becomes kind of difficult to stay disciplined with your nutrition routine. Um, so here's a couple of little tips from me. So first of all, hit the good stuff first. And I don't mean hitting the good stuff like the good scotch or whatever. I mean the good food, the good nutritional food. So if you're getting up in the morning all year round, you're having a good, hearty, decent breakfast, keep that up. So go on before you get up and start eating all the rubbish. And I say rubbish. Look, no food is bad. It's just the kind of the quantity that we have it in can be like bad. But no food in itself is bad. Um, so when I say rubbish, like what I'm talking about is the stuff that we shouldn't have so much of. So before you start hitting that stuff, have your breakfast, get the good nutritional stuff into you. Because if you're not getting that into you and it's filling up on, chocolates and lollies and soft drinks and alcohol and all that stuff, and you haven't hit those nutritional basics that you need, like your protein requirements and, all the good stuff that your body needs, then your body's still going to be craving that and you're going to continue to eat. Where if you hit the good stuff first, if you have your decent breakfast, there might be a room for a couple of chocolates afterwards, but you're less likely to go overboard with the not so good stuff. And if you have that decent breakfast, your chance of grazing all morning is going to be less. So that kind of segues into my next part is try to avoid the grazing. So bring the food out for the meals, bring your breakfast out, put the food away, bring your lunch out, put the food away. So the the thing about Christmas and lots of parties and that is there seems to be food always out. So it's easy to just go and grab food. Now, this might be out of your control because you might be at someone else's house. They've always got food out. So try to take yourself away from that. So instead of always sitting at the table or close to the food, maybe go outside or something, or take yourself away from that kind of temptation of constantly eating something just because it's there. Now, the third, and this is the last nutritional piece I'll put in, is limit your alcohol. So, no, I don't say don't drink alcohol um, because that would be like um, a bit like, well, that's not me because I do enjoy a beer, I do enjoy a glass of wine, so I'm not going to sit here myself and say don't drink alcohol, but limit the alcohol. So when we talk about like energy sources, we talk about like protein, we talk about fat, and we talk about carbohydrates, and they're the big three. The body needs all of them, but there's actually fourth energy source, and that's alcohol. Now, unlike the other three, our body doesn't need alcohol. We can survive without alcohol. Your body needs fat, your body needs carbohydrates, your body needs protein, but your body doesn't need alcohol. Now, I'm not going to get on a pedestal here and say, talk about the evil of drinking or anything. I'm just saying that this is something our body can do without. And the reality is
Um, I'll just let this loud car go past before I talk again. So the reality is alcohol is a poison. So it's actually not good for you. So I did mention before that no food is bad for you. There is a caveat there. Alcohol is actually a poison, and it is bad for you. Um, but like I said, having said that, I do enjoy a beer. I do enjoy a glass of wine. Um, but but realistically, it is not good for you. And so you need to kind of like not overindulge in the alcohol. And there's kind of I guess Christmas and New Year's, there's quite often alcohol around tempting us, and people constantly topping up your drinks too. So just be wary of this. Maybe set yourself a limit. A good thing to do is maybe only have a certain number of drinks available, or in the fridge. So if you if you put like 4 beers in the fridge, and your 4 beers, all the rest of the beers are hot. So we don't drink hot beer. Um, so obviously, you know, you're not going to have once you've had those 4 beers, you're not going to have another cold one available. I know people stick them in the freeze and stuff to chill them down, but kind of be a bit disciplined about your alcohol intake. And another thing you could do is maybe switch to mid-strength beer, and it's kind of a win-win in a lot of ways because um, obviously you with a mid-strength beer, lower alcohol, so you know you may still be able to drive after a couple of mid-strength beers. And look, don't take that as legal advice. Obviously, don't if you get pulled over and breathalyzed and you're over, don't say, hey, the kilt man at the Kilted Athlete podcast said I can have 2 mid-strength beers and still drive. That's certainly not legal advice, but it's kind of a win-win switching to the mid-strength beers. If you look at beers, so your calories in beers come from two different things. They come from the carbohydrate and they come from the alcohol. So you get a lot of low carb beers out there. Um, so there's still most low carb beers still a full strength alcohol, so they'll be at 5%. Um, and then you have your mid strength beers, about 3 to 3.5%. And because they've got less alcohol, they naturally have less calories. So you kind of like your mid-strength beers and your low-carb beers are roughly around the same alcohol content, but you've kind of got that added bonus with your mid-strength beers of having less alcohol. Um, and then sometimes you can get like a low-carb mid-strength beer, which is it's kind of like a double bonus because they're usually even lower in calories themselves than either your low carb or your mid strength beers. And look, the lower alcohol beers lately are a lot better tasting than they used to be. I remember years and years ago, back in the 80s, when light beer first came out, they didn't taste good at all, but they've become a lot better in taste lately. And look, I'm not going to endorse certain brands or anything on this podcast because that's not me. But yeah, there are some quite decent tasting lower alcohol mid-strength beers out there. Um, yeah, so consider using those lower alcohol beers where possible, and kind of don't don't throw them down too quick, um, and go reaching for that next one quickly because that's all going to add up and build up. So yeah, definitely reduce the or limit the amount of alcohol you're drinking. So anyway, look, there are a few tips I've got there. So try to stay active where possible.
try to kind of keep up your normal nutritional routine, having decent meals, getting your protein in, getting all your normal nutrients that your body needs. Get all of them in. Don't just go reaching for the rubbish straight away. Walk where possible. Just go for a walk. Look, like I said, I'm walking around. I'm going for a walk while I'm doing this podcast right now. I'm kind of like ticking off a couple of things that I need to do. It's actually just started to rain a bit, so anyway, it's quite pleasant because it has been quite hot the last couple of weeks. We've got up to like 40 degrees Celsius. And for those of you that don't do the whole metric thing, I believe that's about like a million degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. Yeah, so the rain's a bit of a pleasant, it's still warm, but it's kind of brought that temperature down a bit. Yeah, so anyway, look, guys, I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I hope you have a great Christmas, New Year. Enjoy yourself. Don't go for that all or nothing attitude, because once you have that Tim Tam, you're going to kind of give up on it all. So cut yourself some slack, enjoy yourself, but the main thing is like keep that routine. The longer you go without doing that thing that you normally do, the harder it is to get back into that routine. Um, you know, if you keep saying, "Oh, I'll just have a week off," then that week off turns into another week, and next thing it's like a month and a half since you've been for a jog, and then it becomes tougher and tougher to get back into that routine. So to try to maintain your routine where possible. Enjoy yourself, but don't be silly, okay, guys? All right, and so that's it for the podcast. Thanks again for joining me, and I will talk to you all next time. See ya.